Several countries have launched an offensive against a new Islamic terrorist group in Africa called Al-Shabaab.
The group is linked to al-Qaeda, and now the United States and other nations are trying to wipe them out. George Thomas has the story from Ethiopia.
The past 6 months have seen plenty of action on the Horn of Africa. Kenyan and Ethiopian troops have been crossing into Somalia, hunting the terrorist group known as Al-Shabaab. Backed by local militias, Kenyan forces have launched airstrikes against terrorist hideouts.
This is a major offensive, and I would rank it as the strongest offensive that we've seen since 2006.
The map of Somalia tells the story. It's been without a functioning government for decades. In fact, the current president controls little of his country. The southern and central regions are in the hands of Al-Shabaab.
It's in that backdrop that we've seen various Islamist groups with connections to outside transnational jihadist forces end up becoming dominant players within Somalia.
Somalia's neighbors are trying to change that with some help from the United States. At a secret base some 300 miles south of the Ethiopian capital city of Addis Ababa, the U.S. Air Force is flying secret missions over the skies of Somalia. Reaper drones equipped with Hellfire missiles and satellite-guided bombs are reportedly conducting counter-terrorism missions from the Arba Minch airfield in southern Ethiopia. There are also reports that CIA agents operating from the airport in Mogadishu are training a new force to pursue the Islamist fighters.
The United States sees itself as having a national interest within Somalia because of connections between Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda. These connections include connections based on relationships and include the fact that Al-Qaeda, in its propaganda, clearly sees Somalia as being an important part of its overall war against the United States.
In Addis Ababa's Little Mogadishu, home to tens of thousands of Somali refugees, the military offensive is welcome news.
Al-Shabaab has made the situation in Somalia worse. Any organization or country which is fighting against Al-Shabaab, we are welcoming.
For most Americans, the movie Black Hawk Down was an introduction to the chaos that's come to symbolize life on the streets of Mogadishu. But for the first time, there's a ray of hope that the Kenya, Ethiopia, and U.S. offensive against Al-Shabaab will prove successful. For now, though, the group has gone on the offensive, launching a Twitter account in December to court new recruits. It has more than 9,200 followers and counting. Most of the tweets are in English. The U.S. government is reportedly trying to shut the account. In January, the group posted this video on a jihadist website, urging followers to join their cause. The man in the video, reportedly a top Al-Shabaab fighter, also declares war on Kenya. U.S. authorities have cause for concern. 7 foreign Al-Shabaab recruits, including Craig Baxham, a former soldier in the U.S. Army, were arrested in Kenya recently. Baxham reportedly told the FBI that he was willing to fight for Al-Shabaab.
Craig Baxham, for example, he spoke of the fact that he wanted to live under a Sharia state that was being implemented by Shabaab. Some of them view this as being very much a religious thing where Somalia represents what they see as true Islam.
Baxham is not alone. Since 2007, federal investigators say more than 40 Americans have joined Al-Shabaab. Several were killed in military operations. At least 2 died in Somalia as suicide bombers. And now, as America's shadow war on the continent ramps up, there's growing concern that Al-Shabaab is trying to connect with other Al-Qaeda-linked groups in Africa. George Thomas, CBN News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Well, it seems like when you shut down one of these groups, another one springs up. And, we took out the Taliban in Afghanistan. We tried to create a democracy there. I'm not sure we're going to be successful in Afghanistan, but in the wake of that, in the wake of there not being a state that allows active terror training camps, we're now seeing it in Somalia, which has not had an active government for a long time. And here they're trying to create a utopia, just as the Taliban did in Afghanistan, the perfect Islamic state. I believe in this war on terror that guns aren't going to do it. Bullets aren't going to change it. We've got to wage the war as a war of ideas, and whose idea is proper. Now, in today's politically correct societies in Europe and North America, is it popular to tell somebody, I'm sorry, your religious ideas are wrong. Your concept of God is wrong. Your concept of how to get to paradise, where if you die in jihad, that's the sure way. If you go blow yourself up in a public marketplace and kill a lot of innocent people, we've got to be able to say publicly, that's wrong. If your prophet is teaching you that, he's no prophet of a living God. We've got to be able to get a war of ideas out on the table, and if we think we're going to win it with guns and bullets, we're dead wrong. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon Defense Secretary Leon Panetta believes Israel may attack Iran within the next few months, in April, May, or June. Washington Post columnist David Ignatius writes that Panetta is concerned about that possibility, and he says the Obama administration has cautioned Israel not to attack. Israel's defense minister, meanwhile, says the world is growing more aware that military action against Iran's nuclear program may be necessary. Ehud Barak says leaders are beginning to see that sanctions will not work, and a military option may be necessary to stop Iran from gaining nuclear weapons. The House of Representatives is taking up a bill that would ban insider stock trading by lawmakers and thousands of executive branch officials. The Senate overwhelmingly passed that bill 96-3, and President Obama says he will sign it immediately. Insider trading by members of Congress became an issue when conservative author Peter Schweitzer wrote about it in his book, Throw Them All Out. America's most famous breast cancer charity is standing by its decision to pull some of its funding from Planned Parenthood. The Susan G. Komen Foundation is known for its Pink Ribbon campaign to bring awareness to breast cancer, but liberals on Capitol Hill and in the media are roundly criticizing the foundation for its decision. Ephraim Graham has that story.
The pink ribbon is known worldwide. It's a symbol of the fight against breast cancer. But today, the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Foundation is fighting another battle after its decision to drop funding for Planned Parenthood. Critics say the decision is a political one.
It's very disturbing that the whole thing has become a political tool and that Komen is buying into that.
But CEO and founder of Susan G. Komen, Nancy Brinker, says her organization does not make decisions to be popular. They make decisions to end cancer.
We will never bow to political pressure. We will always stand firm in our goal to end breast cancer forever. We will never turn our backs on the women who need us the most. We are working to eliminate duplicative grants, freeing up more dollars for higher impact programs. And wherever possible, we want to grant to the provider that is actually providing the life-saving mammogram.
Planned Parenthood provides abortion and birth control services. But last year, an undercover investigation by the group Live Action showed the abortion provider does not provide on-site mammogram screening.
Thanks for calling myself out here. How can I help you?
Hi, I just talked to Samantha, I think at your Georgetown clinic. And she said to talk to you guys about services with mammograms, that you guys provide mammograms.
We don't hear.
Is there any way that I can come in for a breast exam and a mammogram?
Okay, well, unfortunately, we do not offer, like, the mammogram. Thank you for calling Planned Parenthood. How can I help you?
Does Planned Parenthood provide mammograms of some sort?
We do not.
Brinker says the decision to drop funding will now free up that grant money to be used in a more effective way. Since making the announcement, the breast cancer charity's donations have actually surged, up by 100% in the past few days. Brinker says it's time to move past this and focus on the real mission.
The scurrilous accusations being hurled at this organization are profoundly hurtful to so many of us who've put our heart, soul, and lives into this organization. But more importantly, they are a dangerous distraction from the work that still remains to be done in ridding the world of breast cancer.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Ephraim mentioned in that story that donations to the Komen Foundation are up, but so are those to Planned Parenthood. $400,000 in smaller donations over the last few days, $250,000 from a family foundation in Dallas, and a $250,000 pledge from New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. President Obama mixed politics with prayer during his appearance at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington Thursday. He said his policies are guided by his Christian faith. He was one of the thousands who attended that breakfast, and our John Jessup was there as well.
What could bring two people on opposite ends of the political spectrum, like Jeff Sessions?
Jesus said that if we had faith as small as a mustard seed, we could move mountains.
And Nancy Pelosi.
So Solomon said, give your servant a heart to understand how to govern your people.
Together on one stage, the National Prayer Breakfast, a Washington institution for more than 60 years. It's an event that examines the life of Jesus as a model for servant leadership.
We don't need a constitutional amendment or some big congressional reform. We just need to start acting better, and Jesus gives us the place to start.
For the third time, President Obama addressed the bipartisan international crowd, where he discussed the importance of prayer.
These moments of prayer slow us down. They humble us.
He revealed some things about his own spiritual habits, which include morning prayer and a devotion and daily scriptures from pastors like Joel Hunter or T.D. Jakes. But he also suggested that his politics of shared responsibility and higher taxes for the rich are shaped by his faith.
For me as a Christian, it also coincides with Jesus' teaching that for unto whom much is given, much shall be required. It mirrors the Islamic belief that those who've been blessed have an obligation to use those blessings to help others, or the Jewish doctrine of moderation and consideration for others.
Highlighting a current issue in the cultural war, keynote speaker Eric Metaxas reminded the audience how Christian leaders like William Wilberforce and Dietrich Bonhoeffer fought to end slavery and to stop the Holocaust. He likened their efforts to the modern-day fight for the unborn.
Apart from God, we cannot see that they are persons as well. So those of us who know the unborn to be human beings are commanded by God to love those who do not yet see that.
Metaxas also encouraged the audience to love and pray for everyone, especially with those whom they disagree. That, he said, is the key between a living faith and mere religion. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Gordon, back to you.
Well, it's nice to see them all getting together and praying. I hope that they do that on a regular basis, not just once a year. It might reduce the rhetoric that we're seeing both in the political campaign and we're seeing on Capitol Hill. We need to come together. We need to unite together to solve the problems that we face. If we're a house divided, we're not going to be able to stand. But if we could become one nation under God, indivisible, well, then we can stand.
Well, if you'd rather not watch Madonna's halftime show during the Super Bowl Sunday, there is an alternative. Former NFL coach Tony Dungy and his wife Lauren are host of a 3-minute online video on adoption. The Dungies have adopted several children themselves, and they urge other Christian families to do the same. They believe adopting a child mirrors the adoption of believers into God's family. The video can be played at game parties and at churches during their services. More than 100,000 children in the U.S. were told need a home. This video is sponsored by three groups that handle domestic and foreign adoptions. Operation Blessing is helping families better their lives by starting small businesses in impoverished communities. In Guatemala, for example, Operation Blessing worked with a woman named Elsa. She lost her home in a tropical storm. Her family moved and she opened a small store to help make ends meet. Then her husband got sick and all of the family's income went towards medicine. Unfortunately, he was not able to beat his illness and passed away, leaving Elsa struggling to survive with 7 children. Elsa was unable to keep her store going, but Operation Blessing stepped in and provided all the supplies needed to get it running again. Now Elsa is back in business and able to provide for her family. OB also distributed more than 38,000 pounds of food and emergency relief supplies to victims of the disaster, helping more than 13,000 people. You can find out more about what Operation Blessing is doing around the world by going to its website at ob.org.